Students, I'm here with a special guest today. I'm here with Joe, and we're going to be looking into the world of insurance. And most importantly, besides what his everyday life looks like in that career, also the path to take him there. So, Joe, super good to see you. It's been 10 years since the classroom, I think, man.
I know. Yeah. Even longer, I think. Yeah. It's good to see you too.
But thanks for being here. And first off, we'd love to know a little bit about you. And then, of course, what is your current job? And eventually dive into what does a day in the life look like for Joe in that career? I think we'd love to learn about that.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So I graduated from Sandberg in '08. So I said 10 years earlier. It's almost 15, which is
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. That makes
Crazy.
me.
Mr. J was my chem teacher, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, chem. And so that's me. I went to ISU, go Redbirds, and now fast forward, I live out in Naperville. I'm a dad to two awesome girls, and a husband to another awesome woman. So what do I do for my job? My title is Vice President of Cyber and Professional Liability at a big company called Chubb. It's a massive publicly traded company, but no one's probably heard of it unless they're into insurance. They're just a massive property casualty insurance company. They're not really in the personal line side, so you won't. They're not a competitor like State Farm or Geico or that. It's all for the most part business insurance, and that's what I do. I do cyber insurance and some lines of errors and omission. So when people ask what I do, they have no idea what cyber insurance is, but I tell them to think about the target data breach or any type of data breach, ransomware attack. You can read all about it, and it can close companies' doors. It's super expensive to recover from an attack like that. So just like companies can buy fire insurance or general liability insurance or environmental insurance, they can buy cyber insurance to protect in case something like that happens.
Wow.
So
I never even thought about that. So there's like different areas of insurance. One is for like, I guess what I'm used to, like my home, my car, my auto insurance, but then you're insuring huge, big companies in case something bad happens in the digital world, they steal your information. I never even thought about that. The amount of time and money it takes to fix all that's a huge monetary burden on a company.
absolutely. Yeah. And what I do is I do everything from middle market, so about 100 million in company revenue, all up to the Fortune 1, right? So middle and big. And yeah, the big companies, it's a massive burden, but it's almost more important for the smaller middle market companies because it could actually put them out of business on the smaller end.
All right. So if you're trying to help these companies find the right, is the term policy like the insurance policy?
Spot on. Yep.
So is
Yep.
that your job to kind of walk them through like, okay, this is how much your company makes. This is how much data you have. This is how much we would recommend in protection in case A, B, or C happen. Is that what you're doing? Talking to people?
Yeah, kind of. So it's interesting. So my job at the end of the day is to make sure Chubb makes a profit, right? So I work for Chubb, and the companies need an advocate, right? And it's legally required. It's very there's a lot of laws around insurance. So every company has an intermediary or a broker. So like you think of like the Willis Tower downtown, Willis is a massive insurance broker. Aon, there's the Aon Center downtown. Aon is a massive insurance broker. Marsh, all those companies, and there's a lot of smaller ones too. So they would actually go to a company and say, hey, let me broker your insurance. Let me learn about your company. I'm going to recommend X, Y, and Z. I'm going to recommend to buy a policy. I'm going to recommend 10 million in limits or 20 million in limits, what have you. And then the broker then comes to folks like me and says, okay, I've got ABC Corp. They really want to buy cyber insurance. Here's what you need to know about them. And then I would underwrite it. I'd research the company, and then decide if I want to quote it or not, and then decide how to structure it and how to price the deal.
So you're the person working for the insurance company that eventually figures out, all right, this is the price we'd recommend that you would sell that to the company so that they're protected. Did I get that right?
Spot on. Yep,
Awesome.
exactly.
So is your job a lot of communication between different, was the term brokers? You work with brokers?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's what I love about it. And I could talk about kind of how I got into the career, but it's a lot of negotiating, right? Because, I could say, okay, it should be $100,000. And they say, oh, no, you're crazy. The most they can pay is 80. And then I say, okay, well, okay, I could structure the program. I could structure the policy to be 80, and it's going to take out these coverages, or it's going to have a higher deductible, higher retention. So there's a lot of negotiating, which I love. I love talking through deals and finding a way that makes it work for the client, the broker, and then me, Chubb, the insurance company. And then it's a lot of marketing, right? It's no secret people like doing business with people that they like. So it's a lot of, the traditional business world of lunches, dinners, happy hours, ball games, what have you, just to tell people about who you are, your company, the product that you're selling. I'm super lucky that Chubb is just a massive company and everyone in my world knows about Chubb.
Okay.
But yeah, it's about half negotiating, half underwriting, research, and then the other half is marketing, telling folks what you're selling. And then in my current role, that's about an underwriter. My current role, I manage the region so that I have 15 folks reporting into me who do that every day. And I love underwriting. I miss it a lot, actually. But I like managing people too, and developing their careers and finding out what they like and how to put them in a position to succeed.
So does your company, and maybe not just your company in general, but the insurance world, does it allow for growth and learning new things and moving to different areas? Or is it once you're kind of in there, you kind of have a set job and you just learn to excel in that?
Yeah, great question. So we were talking earlier just a little bit, and no one's really heard of, no, first off, no one's heard of cyber insurance, right? But I don't think a lot of people see themselves as an insurance underwriter because they don't really know about it, which worked to my advantage a million times over, because cyber insurance hasn't been around for that long, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years. So I'm at 31 years old, I'm the old guy in the room, which is kind of crazy. But absolutely, there's roles as actuaries. So if you're massively into math, massively into numbers, insurance companies hire a ton of actuaries. There's underwriters if you like a little bit of both. There's marketing people or business development people that are all focused on sales, all focused on marketing. And then there's different lines of coverage. If you go into property and you say, I want to try something new, you can go into cyber, you can go into directors and officers insurance, you can go into casualty. So absolutely, it's something that my company encourages, but really the whole industry encourages, moving around, trying to find whatever niche you're really into, and then blossoming from there.
I love it. I'd love to eventually, like you said, kind of get into the stepping stones of how you got where you were. And did you learn what you needed to in college, or was it the college the door to get in, and then you had to take extra tests or that? I'd love to be kind of a fly on the wall to hear that story. Before I jump into that, though, really quick, to kind of paint a real world picture, say my company does have an attack. I would call my broker because I have this problem. And then how does that eventually trickle over to you and your team? Is there a lot of like, this happened, we've got to figure out how much this cost and send that money? Just curious how that would work to kind of paint that big picture for my students.
Yeah. Great question. There's a lot of costs that go into that people don't think about, right?
Yeah.
So we're involved from day one. Not me, talking about different career paths. I'm not involved at all. Our claims people are involved. So the claims folks, that's their role, to be involved from the beginning. And really the first call might be to the broker, or it might be to a lawyer, right? When this happens, there's a ton of state laws, maybe a federal law like a HIPAA if it's in healthcare, and then even foreign laws like there's the GDPR in the European Union that even American companies need to abide by if they're dealing with the data of Europeans. So there's a whole bunch of laws that need to be followed, and you need to report in a certain time. So you need to call a lawyer. which costs money. You
Yeah.
need to call a forensics firm, that an actual IT forensics firm, to come in, figure out what happened, make sure that bad guys are not currently in the system still, make sure they didn't take data out. That costs a ton of money.
To say that sounds expensive.
Yep, absolutely. In the case of a ransomware attack, do you pay the ransom? Because if you do, that could be millions of dollars covered under a policy. Did you have some sort of interruption? If you're like an online retailer and you're down for 5 days, you're going to say, well, I missed out on 5 days of revenue, so I need insurance to cover that, which a normal policy would. Did you lose data? Do you need to recreate that data? Hire people for overtime to recreate that data? Cost money. And then God forbid you get sued, because people's data got released. People's healthcare data, credit card data, whatever. So those are the costs involved. That's actually what my product covers. And my company is involved really from day one or second one. I'm not really involved at all. I look at it when it comes time to renew the policy. I say, okay, you had a claim. How'd you handle that? What did you do as a response to make sure it doesn't happen again? But yeah, my company is involved really from day one.
Wow, a lot of moving parts. And now that you went through that, I can totally see how you said one cyber attack could totally shut down a company. You're talking millions of dollars if you don't have the right coverage. That's it. I mean, you can't keep open and pay all those people to fix the problem. So, wow, that's very eye-opening. Thank you. I definitely was blind to that whole world. So
Yeah, it's cool.
that.
I tell people I'm in insurance, and big smile comes across my face. I'm pretty passionate about what I do, which sounds weird to a lot of people. And I know I don't work for a charity. It's not a completely selfless job. But it's cool. My job is to structure policy in which companies can get back up and running after the worst day of their year, or their cycle.
Wow. Well said. So I guess where you're at now, you're managing people, you've gone through some steps. Could we just get a little quick stepping stone of how you ended up where you are? And maybe if you needed to go back to school or learn skills or get trained on the job, we'd just love to hear about that process.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start when I knew you, or when I met you. High school was actually really easy for me. And maybe I shouldn't tell this to a lot of your students, but I really didn't study at all. And I got, B plus A's on the vast majority of my classes. And then I got into college, and I actually thought I wanted to be a high school history teacher is what I wanted. And then my first assignment was to read 100 pages on ancient Mesopotamia. And I said, oh, this sounds horrible. And I said, okay, well, maybe that's a clue to change. So I shifted to marketing. That's what I graduated with, business marketing. And I learned a lot in the classes, but I think what I really learned in college is, I needed to study, because suddenly life was hard and classes were hard and tests were hard. So I needed to learn actually how to take notes, how to study. And then I think more importantly, just how to manage your time, right? I went away to college. It was only 2 hours away at Illinois State, but you have social obligations. I was active in my church. So you had church obligations, school obligations. I had a girlfriend who's now my wife, and she wanted my time, and, let alone laundry, right? So I think that's what I learned the most, of just managing your time, even more than the actual classes. The classes definitely prepared me for what I'm doing, but I think more just learning how to operate independently. So I'm absolutely happy that I went to college. I think, whether you like it or not, it's kind of a necessity for a lot of jobs. Certainly my job. My job doesn't require any certifications. The broker side does. The broker side, you need to be licensed as a broker by the state. My job doesn't. There's a few certifications, one that I have, one more that I could get, kind of if I just wanted to, from a personal satisfaction perspective.
Right.
But no, for what I do, you need a bachelor's degree. You don't need any advanced education. You don't need any certifications. you really just need a bachelor's degree. And my story, kind of how I got into it, I was a marketing major, and my first job out of college, I was an IT headhunter.
Okay.
So I'd try to find a database engineer and find her or him a database engineer job. And my first week into the job, I told, again, my girlfriend, wife now, I was like, I like talking to people on the phone. I like meeting people, but I want to creatively think a little more, right? I need to solve some problems. I need to analyze something in addition to the marketing piece. And she was actually an insurance major. Her dad's in insurance. Her aunt is in insurance. And she's like, okay, so you want a job that's about half marketing and half analytical problem solving, analytical thinking. And I was like, yes, that's what I want. What is it? And she's like, you should be an underwriter. So that's how I got into it. I interviewed at every insurance company I could think of. I was super active on LinkedIn, and I'd recommend that a lot. That's how you and I reconnected.
Right.
And that's how I sent a LinkedIn note to anyone who had a title that I wanted. I sent, anyone who had an underwriter with a few years of experience, I sent them a note, made it pretty personalized. And I got a job at a company called Star doing underwriting, the same thing that I do now. And then only 2 years later, I really liked what I was doing. But my current company called, which was a little bit bigger, a little more established, could offer me a little more training. And I went there in 2015. So that was 7 years ago.
Wow. Well, you're at the right place at the right time with your girlfriend, now wife, planting that seed for you. How lucky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not just saying this. I think, whether it's your parents, your siblings, in my case, a spouse, I think that support system is just super, super important.
Well, Joe, you brought up a lot of great points. And if I can speak from my memories of you as a student, you've always been a very confident, classy communicator. So you do have that natural ability to empathize and talk with people. So you finding this career with all the communication and marketing behind it is no surprise to me. It flows well for you. But I think
Yeah,
by
thanks.
hopefully some of the students hearing your story, and for those that I have a lot of students who are just, I have no idea what I do after I leave this place. And that's normal at 17, 16 years old. But opening up the door to this world, insurance, which honestly, before we talked, I figured there was a little door to open up, but it sounds like there's so many different opportunities and areas in insurance. And what I think came through, which I loved, is that you can be passionate about it because at the end of the day, you're helping people, you're protecting them, and
Yeah,
making money. It's a
absolutely.
win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And every company out there needs it. And not only needs it because it's important, but for at least property and general liability and auto and workers' compensation, it's legally required. So actually every single company does need it. So if it's pretty, recession proof, pretty stable as well.
Oh, I love it. Well, I want to honor your time and I appreciate everything. The one last thing I always like to leave with is thinking now, 10 years ago, or wow, it's getting on 15, 16 years ago. Is there anything, a skill or an idea, something you wish you knew or something you're glad you did that might help them, my students in any way for now, for the future, anything at all that you would just give suggestions or recommendations? Doesn't even have to do with insurance, but just tips in general. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think you mentioned it. I've always been pretty confident in myself, and I think coming from the south suburbs, I think work ethic. There's a lot of folks in the south suburbs with a good work ethic, but I don't know. I think that you're going to face situations. I think of having kids. Were we really ready to have kids? I'll tell you, no. I wasn't really ready. We bought this house 3 years ago. Was I really ready for the mortgage payments? I don't know. I didn't know at the time, but I think, as long as you work your tail off, as long as you have a good work ethic, just trust yourself, right? Trust yourself that it'll all work out. Take calculated risks with your career and your life. And if you work hard and you do something that you love. And in my case, you have an awesome support system to back you and do it with you. I think that's been the key for my life so far, is to, trust that it'll work out and then actually make it work out.
Love it. Follow through, passion, support systems. Couldn't say it better myself, my friend. I love it. Thanks for the inspiration. Joe, on behalf of myself and my students, we just want to thank you for your time and shedding a little light on a really big industry that hopefully has turned a few dials and planted a few seeds in some of my students. So, Joe, we're grateful. Thank you for today, man.
Awesome. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I absolutely love it. It's super important. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe.